Hello, this is J9LP giving you another installment of my views on news. That's, of course, gaming news from the past week. I know I promised this was going to be a weekly thing, but circumstances have caused things to go a little off track, as it were. So hopefully after this one I'll be back on track, and after I've posted the other ones, will be more up to date. Until then, let's just get on with this, shall we? Let's move it. So this has actually been a pretty hefty week, it has to be said. A lot of stuff has happened. Some good, some bad, some, well, depending on your point of view, either good or bad. But let's start with some good news, shall we? Yeah, let's have fun with that. So, Jamestown Plus definitive version of the PC Western developed bullet hell shmup is being released for the PlayStation 4 this week. Well, it was released on Tuesday. Extra content for this version actually include a set of new ship options consisting of 3 new characters, 2 new weapons and 6 new shot types. There will also be 2 new stages, one for each of the 2 moons of Mars. Obviously I'm talking about Demios and Phobos. If I pronounce it, I forget anyway. And the soundtrack has actually been remastered as well for 5.1 surround sound. You also get a platinum trophy to be earned for your pleasure for the PlayStation Network, of course, we're talking about here. So this is absolutely fan-freaking-tastic news. PlayStation 4 getting more awesome shmups, and Jamestown is pretty good. It's pretty good. I think I put my views on it before. I kind of like Jamestown as a decent shmup in its own right. I don't think it's that great in all complete total honesty. There are a few things that make it a bit off for me, like for instance the levels seem short, and the way you go through them, I mean, you have the stage select, which is great I suppose, and you essentially just go through a number of them. You can go through 3 stages. To be able to get through more of these stages though, you have to up the difficulty level to, I think it's not Divine, might be the one below that, to be able to actually access all 5 levels. And once you've done that, you get a gauntlet mode which will allow you to play from stage 1 through to 5 in the normal way. And it has all the other kind of bullet hell shmup conventions along with it, along with the vaunt mode that will give you extra points, and as long as you can keep the chain up, a fairly hefty bonus at the end of it. So it's a pretty awesome game. It was out on PC long before it came out on consoles, and I think this is the first console release, although I don't know if it actually did come out on Vita, I can't remember now. But whatever, it's great to see it come onto more platforms, and especially with extras just for incentive for purchase, really. So I would recommend it. Like I said, I don't think it's the best shmup out there. I don't think it's that great, but it is very good, and the production values are really nice. The narrative is pretty cool, and there's a hidden narrative in there somewhere, not necessarily hidden, but something that you can earn, and it's a bit of a giggle. So yeah, but definitely glad to see that game coming on more platforms, and I hope PS4 owners have great amounts of fun with it. Playtonic's spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, Playtonic being a bunch of ex-Rare dudes, will actually be on Kickstarter soon, and the project is known so far now as Project Ukulele. and it has been revealed in the developer's latest press release in the form of conceptual in-engine screenshots, as well as a number of characters hinted at as silhouettes. So they revealed that this will be an entire series with each of these characters featuring in their own game, and these games will cover a number of genres. So these silhouettes pretty much hint at these guys' usual kind of whimsical type characters in a very whimsical universe, which, looking at these screenshots, seem very much what you'd expect from a Banjo-Kazooie successor, certainly. This has been developed in the Unity engine, so it will obviously have a certain look to it, although it does look very nice. I'm looking at these concept, supposedly in-engines shots for now. So Project Ukulele is going to be essentially this universe that will have these different games with these different characters. So it's basically just going to be a whole huge new thing, which is obviously going to be pretty damn cool, and I'm looking forward to it. They haven't really announced platforms as yet, but apparently they've been getting a heck of a lot of people mail them to bring it out for the Wii U, which, given what it is and given the heritage of Banjo-Kazooie, it doesn't necessarily surprise me that much. And then again, if you look at what Rare are doing now, I mean, they just announced this new Conquer thing, which is fantastic, only it's coming out on Project Spark, and I imagine a lot of people are not particularly happy about that. I think there was also a thing that Microsoft was sort of demonstration with crowd, and it was with Banjo-Kazooie and Kinect, which, as you could imagine, a lot of people weren't too pleased about that either. So it's always a question of, would we bring it out for the Xbox One, since that's where Banjo-Kazooie's new home is, or is it actually competing with that and we just don't want to bother with it? You know, it's like what Microsoft are doing with Rare's properties. I mean, apart from Killer Instinct, which is obviously developed to be a really awesome fighting game, with most of their other properties, I don't know what they're doing with it. Nuts and Bolts was just what? You know, and this new Conquer thing is just kind of, you know, I don't think anyone wants to. So obviously, I think people want it out for the Wii. I think it will obviously come out on PC because it's in the Unity engine. It's a PC thing, or if not, it could easily be ported to it in any sense of the word. Obviously, that's where it's going to be developed in the first place. So either way, looking promising at the moment. Of course, details are sketchy at the moment, and we're just relying on the developer's pedigree at this point. Nintendo announces a new online platform for Nintendo consoles, PC and mobile devices. So in this live stream press conference, whilst I'm in Japan, Nintendo's president and CEO Satoru Iwata gave some details about the result of a partnership between them and a company called DNA. That's D-E-N-A, but with some weird kind of caps stuff going on there with DNA. Just to, yeah. Anyway, so they are actually a Japanese mobile and e-commerce service provider that owns popular mobile gaming service Mobage, or Mobage if you want. The platform that they're co-developing with Nintendo hasn't actually been named yet, but it's actually been detailed as the official replacement for Club Nintendo. As you know, Club Nintendo will be closing in the latter half of the year. So this could possibly mean a more unified and possibly, you know, an actual proper account system, even for the existing Nintendo consoles. We're talking about 3DS and the Wii U, which will actually be also accessible through the PC and mobile platforms, which is kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure that even though Iwata did actually say some point before that, you know, they were looking at actually getting a improved account system. It wasn't necessarily going to be for the existing platforms, but it almost seems, and again this is speculation at the moment, it almost seems that it might actually be that. And the main purpose of this new online platform is to actually, well, not the main purpose, but one of the purposes of this new platforms is for mobile device specific games based on Nintendo IP. Well, this is especially huge because this kind of signals Nintendo's move from their own platforms onto the mobile platform. However, it's not necessarily going third party, as it were, although it is kind of, but it seems to be exclusively, obviously, to mobile platforms and PC. And not only that, it seems obvious that the games are going to be brand new ones just based on Nintendo IP that will be purposely made to suit mobile and tablets, so basically touch screens and stuff like that. But don't expect to see something like a mainline Pokemon game or new Super Mario Brothers M or whatever you want to call it, or anything like that. The main purpose of these games really are going to be sort of bringing their brand to smart devices and to actually promote their own dedicated gaming platforms as well as the games that were released on them. So they're kind of using it not only to gain some experience on developing for mobile platforms, they're also using it as kind of a leverage for selling their own stuff. This actually leads to another announcement that they made, that it's just an announcement of an announcement, really. Nintendo also hinted at a new gaming hardware platform, codenamed NX. And there will be more details released next year. Details about it are sparse at the moment because there's practically nothing about technical specs or interface or anything like that, or even games developed for it. All we know at this particular moment in time is that it will actually tie in with this new online platform. So it will be kind of an integral part of it. So depending on what the form of this online platform will be, that probably still won't necessarily give us clues as to what NX actually is. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's basically a successor to the Wii U, and so other people are going even further and saying it's Nintendo admitting defeat of the Wii U as a platform, in which case I thought, well, hang on a minute. For starters, they kind of admitted defeat ages ago when they lowered their sales targets from about 3.6 million. So, one, they don't necessarily need to admit defeat even further, and secondly, this is going to be announced next year, and probably the actual hardware will probably be shown at some point the year after that, 2017. So, in all complete honesty, it's a bit crazy to say, just because they announced it now that they've given up on the Wii U. They've still got games to release this year, and there's still other games that have already been announced that probably be put forward to the year after that. There's still Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, which they said a number of times is still in development, despite people, still insisting that it's been cancelled for some reason, probably because Sega bought Atlas or some nonsense like that. Then there's the Animal Crossing still to come. I know they did the Animal Crossing Plaza thing, probably as a promise of a new Animal Crossing coming out on the Wii U, and that hasn't actually showed anything about that. It may even be revealed in this year's E3. We don't really know that, so it doesn't necessarily mean that NX will even be a next-gen home console. It might not even be a handheld. Obviously, as you know, the new 3DS has just come out and basically revived unit sales and support in that regard. So to come out with something like that so soon, which it isn't going to be so soon anyway, because the 3DS is pretty much 4 years old. The Wii U is pretty much in its third year now, and it's really going on the, I suppose you can't really call it standard console life cycle, because there really isn't a standard console life cycle. No, especially not even for handhelds. I mean, the Game Boy came out in 1989, and its successor, which was the Game Boy Advance, didn't come out until like 2001. And, after, I think the Game Boy Color came out in 1996 or 7, or I forget, something like that. But it was a long time, and then the Game Boy Advance only lasted for like 3 years before the DS came out, and the DS lasted from 2004 up until 2012. So that's practically like 8 years. And, as for like home console platforms, there's nothing set in stone there either. Most of them seem to go through a 5-year cycle, but then the Saturn came out, I think it was in 94, and then the Dreamcast came out in 1999. We all know how long that lasted. It didn't last at all, but that was for different reasons. Even the Mega Drive, I think, came out in 1989 in Japan, and over the space of 2 years was released in other territories, and then that obviously stopped in 1994 when the Saturn came out. And then, of course, there's the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360 came out in 2005, and the PlayStation 3 came out in 2006. They're still being produced. They're still out there. There's games still being made from them. They're pretty much on the 10-year life cycle, for Pete's sakes. So there's no real standard console life cycle. The only one that seems to have stayed fairly consistent is with Nintendo consoles. Super Nintendo came out in 92 in most territories. I think it came out in 91 in Japan. The N64 came out in 1997. GameCube pretty much came out as sort of around 2002. And then the Wii came out around 2007. And obviously, the Wii U came out in 2012. So given that whatever this NX platform is going to be announced with more details in 2016 and probably come out in 2017, same life cycle, for Pete's sakes. And again, even with that, we don't know what this thing will actually be. So, we're just going to have to find out next year with that. As to my feelings about Nintendo going mobile, as it were, I mean, a lot of people were saying that, that they really wanted Nintendo to go mobile. I think a lot of people wanted Nintendo to basically drop their own hardware platforms and go completely third party. A lot of people were basically wanting them to do that. And with them going mobile, I think a lot of people seem to now think that they're going to be releasing their Marios and Zeldas and Pokemon mainline stuff on the mobile, but they're clearly not. This is really more, like I said before, stuff to actually promote their own games and their own hardware, because clearly you're going to get the better experience there when they actually do come out. Obviously you've got your controllers and just basically a fuller experience playing the games on their own hardware, because that's what they essentially made it for. Some people basically are lamenting the loss of Nintendo with them going to mobile. It's like, oh no, they're going to be producing games and they're always all going to be from these crappy mobile games and blah 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 and free-to-play models. And for starters, they're already doing a free-to-play model anyway. They did it with Steel Diver Sub Wars on the 3DS, and then there's that Pokemon Shuffle game, which is essentially pretty much almost very much Candy Crush-esque, and you got your microtransactions and stuff like that. So they've already got their fingers in that pie. And not only that, a lot of the games that they've released in the past for the DS, the whole touch generation things, pretty much already lend themselves quite well to come out on mobile platforms. So I suspect you'll see more stuff like possibly, the brain training stuff. You know, maybe even some sort of more successful experiments with mainline titles, like, for instance, Kirby Canvas Curse. And I suspect, you know, you'll be seeing games like that coming out on that platform, and anyone who probably wants them for, you know, even a proper HD experience will be transitioning to the platform that will allow for that better experience, like, for instance, Kirby's Rainbow Curse for the Wii U. Or at least that's the idea. Well, how it will actually work in practice, we don't really know. And there's the other fear as well, that if Nintendo's forage into mobile platform turns out to be successful, and maybe even more successful, you know, make them even more money than they do with their main dedicated gaming platforms, that they'll just simply drop them and go all the way to mobile, which I can't see happening, purely because they're still making a heck of a lot of money hand over fist with their first party titles, especially with Pokemon and Mario. They've in the past made an absolute ton of money, even more so than a lot of mobile providers from those titles alone. So, you know, it's a revenue stream that they'd be foolish to abandon, and this move really is to kind of leverage that and you know, keep it going, as it were, which I think is a pretty damn smart move. And we'll look forward to seeing what they can do on there, in all complete honesty. And now comes the bad news. And it's especially bad news because it involves one of my favourite games companies since, well, I first heard about gaming, really. Kojima Productions is to be disbanded, and Hideo Kojima, who is obviously the head of the studio, has actually been removed from the list of Konami corporate offices, and this will be happening on the 1st of April, to which, hopefully, when that day comes around, the Motown will turn around and say, "April Fools! You were kidding!" You guys! No, unfortunately, that's not gonna happen. It seems to have been a result of pretty much a falling out between Kojima Studios and Konami, because since Thursday there's been little hints, like, for instance, literature for Kojima Productions' latest game that's supposed to be coming out in September, which is Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. It's basically had Hideo Kojima's name and the references to Kojima Productions' LA branch basically taken out, and they've actually been replaced by Konami Los Angeles Studio. Kojima Productions on the website URL it's actually been redirected to Konami's Metal Gear Portal site, so anything to do with Kojima Productions is seemingly being wiped out by Konami. Basically, there seems to be some kind of conflict of interest, and that's basically resulted in online and phone communications essentially having blocked out Koji Pro's senior staff, and they've also seemed to have lost permanent employees. They are now just essentially contractors. So this has actually been confirmed by Konami. Basically, they are now looking for a new development team to handle future Metal Gear games, and they've essentially announced a new Metal Gear game in development. But it seems like they want absolutely nothing to do with Kojima Productions. That said, Metal Gear Solid 5 is still being worked on, and it will continue to be worked on up until its release date in early September this year. So, from the outside looking in, this just seemed absolutely insane. I mean, if you look at what Konami's been producing for the past few years, it's just been Pro Evolution Soccer and Metal Gear. And of course there's the new Silent Hills game coming out, which I think has also been sort of co-produced. I think John Romero's a part of it, but there's also have Kojima being a pretty sizable part of that too. And now they're shutting them out, and it just seems insane. You think, what, Konami? What are you doing? This is Kojima Productions is Konami at this point, and you're cutting them out? You're killing yourselves. You've been killing yourselves ever since time. You've been killing a lot of the, decent franchises, and now you'll practically, Hideo Kojima has been working on Metal Gear pretty much since its inception, and it seems to have now been the lifeblood of Konami, other than, of course, their pachinko machines, which obviously in Japan is obviously making them a fair amount of money anyway, but they seem to have almost abandoned the gaming space. They're still doing mobile stuff, of course, and then there was Love Plus, but even then, I think the producers of Love Plus have left Konami as well. I think they left sometime in Monday. They announced that they were leaving Konami, so no more Love Plus there, it seems. And, just what else do they have? It just seems like an end of an era. It's obviously an end of an era now, but what a way to go. It almost seems like Konami's practically finished at this point. Obviously, they don't think so. That's why they're still going on with Metal Gear. But they seem to be happy with that. Apparently, in their last financial meeting, they posted a profit, or got some decent amount of revenue at that point, so they seem to be happy where they are. Like I said, this is all from the outside looking in. Who knows what has been going on between Konami and Kojima Productions. Obviously, Kojima Productions have an inordinate amount of power within the company. It almost seems like there seems to be a clash of power there as to who actually is controlling things, and that's where they may have had the falling out. Of course, this is just speculation at this point. I think last week, was it last week or the week before? Might have been last week. Hideo Kojima did say this would be the last Metal Gear, or at least the last Metal Gear Solid as we know it. And it seems like this time he was not wrong. So, this is especially disheartening to me, because it just almost seems like the Konami we know and love is no more. Igarashi, the guy who did the Igavanias, the Metroidvanias as you want to call it, that strain of Castlevania games from Symphony of the Night up through the GBA and DS Castlevanias, left ages ago to venture out on his own, so no more Castlevania in that regard. And Mercury Stream put out those Castlevania Lords of Shadows and whatever else games, and they weren't particularly... I think the first one was met with some kind of critical acclaim, but the second one was absolutely terrible. And Hall of Mirrors, Mirror of Fate, whatever you want to call it, the less said about that, the better, in all complete total honesty. So Castlevania is now practically dead too. Konami seems to have just whittled themselves down to a 2-game company, and they seem to be happy with practically killing themselves, as it were. That's what it seems like. I'm not saying they are. Obviously, like I said, they seem to be okay making money in that regard, but who knows what's going to happen to them now with, their key game designers and producers not with the company anymore. Is this R.I.P. Konami? Who knows? It seems like it at this point though, and that's really sad to say. Okay, well, that's enough for this week. Oh god. This is going to be fun. It is still kind of, but it is things like this, like what's happening between Konami and Kojima being really rather awful news. There were some others as well which I kind of left out on purpose. I might cover it at some other point, but then again, there's always the things to look forward to, like the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, and you know, there's Jamestown Plus for PlayStation and guys to get their hands on now and have fun with. There's always a good side to it, and there are things that I will actually cover in a later update that I've actually been enjoying as well, so it's not all bad. But let us know what you think, guys. Let us know what you think of all this, what your views on these news are, and let us know how we're actually doing. Oh, I'm not doing particularly well at this point, so any suggestions for improvements, and that will be most welcome, as long as they're helpful and not detrimental. Until next week, folks, thanks for watching, you've been awesome, and keep on playing.